unknown entities, fires, shooting your wife, and harvesting organs of people you just shot or rescued are all things you can use to describe Rimworld. And quite frankly, I absolutely love it. It also has an endless amount of mods for customization, but most importantly, it has the most active, non-accidental war crimes I've ever seen in a game. From harvesting the organs of your enemies while they stare you in the eyes to burning down villages with flesh-based organisms inside. Hell, whatever, nuke them. I'm sure they won't mind. If you're crazy, this game has it all. Oh yeah, and there's aliens as well, which will have absolutely no problem ruining the last 4 hours of your time in a few minutes, with a chain gun mounted to their body. And the base building and crafting is cool as well, I guess. This is my experience trying to borrow someone's spaceship to leave the Rimworld, although selling hearts, lungs, and kidneys might be a lucrative business. I wonder if anyone's thought of that. Our colony was comprised of 3 individuals with varying skills, from a well-mannered intellectual speaker to a man that really likes to shoot stuff. Bowman, Anna, and Nina were those 3 survivors. The first things we sort out and do every run is find a good place to make our starting home and start some crop production, usually baking rice. And from there, we just sit around and watch our pawns work. However, there was a seemingly symmetrical structure in a rock, or at least formed around it. It seems sketchy, but nothing we could do about it right now, as Bowen was on the ground. I didn't know this at the time, but apparently Anna cracked her skull, left clavicle, and bruised her neck, head, and legs. I have no clue what caused the fight to break out, but I patched them up and everything was fine. So we just moved on. As time moved on, we made some base modifications, adding a new storage room with a cooler, and of course, a wind turbine to power it. We also started constructing 2 rooms for our Visitor Conversion Program, or VCP for short, where visitors would stay in their fun containment room until they get thoroughly invested in our community through our personal catering system, or PCS for short. Additionally, with these 2 rooms made, all of the walls were replaced with slate to keep fires at a minimum and strengthen the walls. And naturally, after multiple days and a bit of rotting food, I realized my cooler was facing the wrong way and heating up my food storage and not cooling it down at all. Raids would happen every so often, but they were no big deal. They would quite literally bring a knife to a gunfight, meaning some of these fights would end in no time at all. But their battle is just starting, as they get a one-way free ticket into the Visitor Conversion Program. Our first go-around was not that great. After putting them in their room, everybody just went on with their day, and they kinda just died. Not long after, a man fell out of the sky by the name of Fred, and he would be put into our program and healed so he wouldn't meet the fate of the last 2, although probably a better one. We eventually got a quest by the name of Ship to the Stars, or better known as our escape plan. It's a very simple task. All we have to do is travel across the entire planet and defend a ship in a very friendly neighborhood. But to get used to the traveling system beforehand, I would send out 2 of my pawns to get an item stash guarded by 2 angry raccoons. Traveling was actually quite easy, taking what you need and leaving what you didn't. The only real requirement was to take food for the travel and pay attention to your weight limit so you don't travel much slower. Weight limit increases with the amount of people you take with you, how strong they are, and the type of animals you take with you. As long as you're not attacked by any bears or demons in the night, traveling is very simple. So we traveled, killed the raccoons, and got some luciferium, a very powerful and dangerous drug that not only heals permanent injuries, can kill the user if taken too often, but also it explodes. And in the meantime, we rescued a lady by the name of Sam and definitely wouldn't be harvesting her organs in the near future. Sadly, Fred was not a fan of our program and attempted to change facilities. So we stabbed him 7 times to pacify him and then proceeded to acquire their right kidney and heart. Fair and agreed upon early leaving fee. Now that he's graduated from our program, we have a new empty room. The same fate was given to Cameron, who fell out the sky soon after, and Sam after that. So our visitor recruitment program had a 0% success rate. However, our doctor studies were thriving. With an assortment of random things to sell as well as some organs, I assumed we would have enough stuff to sell for food on the trail. So I thought about how everything would go if I packed up all that was important to me and left for the ship across the planet. I think it would go quite well. We would start by traveling to a merchant first to get some money and supplies, but halfway there we would get stopped by some bandits. Of course, they would get taken out with no problem, practically in execution with how easy it was. We would abandon and and burn down our own home, not to look back and try to return to the old life we had. And after regretfully not trading for any food with a caravan outside of a camp we were going to raid, we would go into the camp and see the overwhelming numbers and then revert to a life of pacifism, but only for the ones that can beat us. Or in other words, running in fear and pissing myself would probably be a better outcome for our own survival. With any regard, we would keep traveling to find another caravan selling a bison that we would buy, and seconds after, Anna would get extreme hypothermia and die. Not long after, because of our bad decisions of not buying food at the first caravan and buying a bison to carry absolutely nothing extra, and again, not buying food at the second caravan, Nina would die from starvation soon after, and Bowman would follow suit. So basically what I'm saying is we wouldn't be traveling. Well, that's what I thought at least. Until I realized I saved over the reality where we didn't travel, and also the reality where I didn't abandon my base. Starting with Anna getting a spear thrown through her eye and somehow surviving. After cleaning up the attack and deciding to settle down again because, well, we know the future, everything kind of went to hell in the alternate one. Starting with Levy joining the colony, which was a very bad idea as he was not only Bowman's father, but he was also 80 years old, leaving him quite useless. But because he was Bowman's father and mood debuffs and going insane and burning everything that we had remaining, we couldn't borrow his organs for future use, having to restart our food production methods, and also because we had no components to preserve it. No medicine, and plenty of wounds from protecting ourselves from animal attacks like Bowman getting pummeled by 3 rabbits and needing to get saved. Our main goal had a bit of a change because of the accident. Now we wanted to break into the ancient tomb and the rocks, but to no avail, as our colony was bedridden, literally on their deathbeds. Our next run was a naked brutality run. I have no clue why I did this, but here is how it went down. We had a pawn by the name of Santa. Yes, the legendary Santa was dropped into Rimworld absolutely naked. I quickly constructed a small base on the side of the ancient tomb ruin thing. I once again started construction on the dumb man spike trap, as if you use your eyes, you literally can't miss it. Sadly, we would never see what Santa was capable of outside of the North Pole, as he died to a guinea pig on night 2. So, yeah. Our next group had one goal and one goal alone: to break into the ancient structure. We went through standard procedure, attaching the base to the structure and making an area for growing rice for food. Base construction, raids, and really every aspect of surviving the Rimworld was going smooth and easy. The only problem was how long the spike trap gauntlet was taking to make, causing the death of our pet dog because he stepped on one of the spikes, setting it off, and then got shot. This was around the time our traps were done, so that meant it was time to open the ancient tomb like a CSGO loot box and see what we got. And as someone that has taken part in various styles of gambling, losing time, faith in humanity, and everything in my wallet, I've never been rewarded with the death of 4 people and a sealed away ancient alien hive. So next time you open a mysterious box, remember it's unlikely, but the odds are never 0. So here's the plan. We do it again, but this time, surely our loot box won't give us death and destruction. Surely. Starting over again, but this time with 5 cavemen with pointy sticks instead of 3 people with 2 guns. I assumed with more people, more work would get done. I mean, it just kind of makes sense, right? So again, we attach our base to the ancient structure and begin to survive, slowly building the spike trap gauntlet around the structure. And when it was time to crack it open, there was only 1 alien. So it must have been our lucky day. When I tried to antagonize it, it was super fast and took out our great colonist by the name of Green. Yep, just Green. We quickly grabbed their body and got them in a medical bed, and waited for the weird ancient creature to try and leave through the gauntlet. I, however, have the patience of a 2-year-old on crack. So I decided to bait out the creature faster than a human being with a human being, and with the spike traps and a bit of luck, it was dead, collapsing about halfway through the gauntlet from lack of life. Now it was time for the loot. So the next day I sent in one of my colonists to open the containers one by one. But again, I was left in shock as the ancient tomb had more surprises, because not one, but all of them opened at the same time. And I didn't get any loot at all. I got 3 very angry ancient beings and 1 unconscious one. The spike traps simply didn't do enough, as there just weren't enough of them. And with the door in their way, being their only exit blocking them, they decided to set the gauntlet and the side of my house on fire. Now, I suppose I'm at fault here, because when I think of ancient humans, I think of mummies, cavemen, and monkey. Not ancient, future ex-military that happened to be encapsulated with their weapon of choice. Thankfully, they must have gotten brain damage for being encapsulated for so long. Or they were just born with just as bad aim as my pawns, because their performance would make stormtroopers look like marksmen. Either way, the fire was quite bad. It burned down the side of our home and a few items. But gladly, it killed all of the enemies as well, so they weren't a problem anymore. With 3 of the 4 off-brand Power Rangers dead, with that being red, green, and gray, with purple soon to join them, the man in black came to rescue us. Sadly, this run was seemingly over, as all the loot from the bodies were burned with them. So, as the great and ever so respectable gambler that I am, I went to a new tile to crack open one more tune. This of course ended exactly how you would expect it, getting viciously ravaged and torn apart by creatures of ancient past. Finally, leaving us with the group I would put all of my faith in. The Bliss Pipers. Well, at least until 3 minutes into the run, where Otis and Omeku decided that they were in love and started dating. Because looking at our track record, chances are things were not going to end up so well. But there's nothing we can do about it, so let's continue. Everything went as normal. The only difference was I started building and researching for the long run. We also gave the lovers their own room to love each other. Anyway, not all too much happened. It was standard life, easy raids, and other than Otis shooting his wife, everything was relatively smooth. Sadarina being the worst teammate possible, fumbling every defense and offense they could. Umeku, at some point during a raid, happily stabbed a man in the eye while he invaded our home. And more importantly, her research area. Also, we have this paste dispenser. It doesn't work, and I have no clue why it doesn't work. With the well-functioning base, reinforced walls, power, and food for a lifetime, it was time to start production on weapons and armor. My armor and weapons of choice would be 1 incendiary launcher and 2 LMGs. Because you don't really need to aim with any of them. You let probability aim for you. The more bullets and fire you throw, the better chance you have of hitting something. Which paired perfectly with our colony's glaring lack of aim. Our armor of choice was going to be riot armor. If I'm going to be honest, I didn't know how good it was, it just looked cool. And, you know, it's called riot armor, so it can't be that bad. Tragically, 2.5 helmets into our armor production, and in the middle of a cold snap, which just makes temperature cold, Otis died from an uncurable disease. Well, at least to my knowledge, as I had no clue what the disease was in the first place. Of course, this was the worst case scenario, so we packed up and started our journey across the world. We quickly packed up after finishing an LMG, an incendiary launcher, along with the riot armor. With about 18.3 days of food and a long over 30-day trip ahead of us, we needed to find food through trading or raiding someone. Along the trail, traders were actually pretty common, but none of them wanted any of the materials I brought along, like cloth, organs, or weapons and armor, for money. One of the nights on the trail produced a phenomenon where the colonists had a shared dream, where they went to raid a base because of low resources and got absolutely massacred. They ended up calling the event Ralu de Gam, or in English, reload game, and we moved on. Running out of food was a high concern, but by the time we did, a trader was selling some. Sadly, we had absolutely no money, and traded all of our medicine, other than 2 packs, for just enough food to make it to our destination. There was also this guy that tried to stop us as well. Just like that, we arrived at the ship, and we needed to survive 15 days of getting assaulted with increasing difficulty. And we had no food, no place to sleep, and no defenses. We had a few things to get done before we could start what I would call the last defense. Preparations were simple, but circumstances weren't great, like not having enough components, so we couldn't make a freezer. And not having a freezer meant we needed to live off berries. But collecting wood was quite simple. Editing me here, I have absolutely no idea why I didn't just mine components. Like, I could have just mined components, like I did it earlier in one of the other runs. I don't know why. Whatever. However, we had a plan. We would move the entire ship into the mountain and encase it in whatever materials we could, trapping us and the ship inside, leaving the attackers to dig countless hours to reach us. In my eyes, this was the perfect plan. Although it might take a little bit of time, it was gonna work. Of course, the plan crumbled as quickly as I thought of it, as Omeku walked outside and fell over, needing urgent medical help. What makes this worse is all the medicine we sold to get food to get here. So with no medicine, they died. So our once useless colonist was now the only one who could carry out our legacy. And then the same day, he went into a berserk state and tried to 1v1 an elk, not with the LMG in his hands, but with his actual hands. And he didn't win. With all of our colonists dead and the man in black following closely behind, it was all over. But if you were wondering how it would go if we actually did start the ship and we did try to fight for our life, I can tell you it would be a struggle like the rest of this run. But maybe, just maybe, we could do it. It turns out, in the case where we didn't hunt and we just went for our plan, we can't move the ship into the mountain, so that was out the window. Saturina would end up being useless anyway because of a lack of food, and the man in black would not be able to defend 15 days of the ship, but I just started anyway, just to see what would happen. The first wave was 10 enemies armed with nothing but melee weapons, which was not bad, but Saturina fell over and was captured. I had a great idea to put the man in black into one of the pods to get launched into space, and the next wave came, destroyed the ship, and left. I didn't understand how ancient humans could get stuck in cryopods, but in the end, we became one of those ancients. So there's a world where we're let free and go to live a new life in the Rimworld, and another world where we're never found and left in ruin of an old, destroyed space site. Not dying, but also not living. I would like to say we were close, and in some cases, we even won. We would never die, but if the 15 days was going to be a test of skills, I don't think shooting my wife, dying to an elk, and dying to bacteria was going to save me. So let's just call this a loss. Well, we did make it there, and technically we didn't die. Fuck it. It's a win, baby. Let's go. However, that organ extraction company did sound kind of good. So maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 6,000 maybe years from now when the ancient gets released, we can work on that. But until then, like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you in the next one.